is the 2025 Food Systems Intern Study, Understanding Kansas Tribal Foodways and Identifying Potential Tribal County Partnerships Through Relationship Building. And this will be presented by Star Mini Horses.
So, Hamitakiapi, Chantewastenape, Chiuzapi, Wichapi Tishinko, Tami Machiapi. Hello, everyone. I greet you all with a good heart and a handshake. My name is Star Mini Horses, and I come from the Oglala Lakota, Cheyenne, Taos Pueblo, Meskwaki, and Leech Lake Ojibwe nations. And I'm the current food systems intern for the Douglas County Sustainability Office. And as Tyler said, this is my 2025 food systems internship study. So over the course of my internship, since the summer of 2024, I have focused my internship on researching and identifying Indigenous entrepreneurs, tribes, and businesses regionally and how they contribute to their community's food system. This background research helped me to identify potential areas of focus for the rest of my internship, which led to the development of my project that focuses on identifying Kansas tribal food systems, specifically with the four federally recognized tribes in Kansas: the Kickapoo tribe in Kansas, the Sac and Fox Nation of Missouri in Kansas and Nebraska, the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation, and the Iowa tribes of Kansas and Nebraska. This also seeks to identify what ways food initiatives employed by the tribes could also benefit Douglas County's Indigenous communities and also be mirrored in the Indigenous Food System Study and Action Plan's aims. And to overall, my goal to initiate county tribal relationships and support the planning of the second phase of the IFSAP, the Indigenous Foodways Cultural Center and Grocer Pilot. And so in the early stages of the development of my project, some of my guiding documents included a detailed introductory document that could be used to inform potential collaborators and solidify the format of my project, and also a research protocol that would be used to guide my interview sessions and make that available for interviewees to know the questions that they would be asked, and if needed, my project would be ready to submit to like a tribal institutional review board. And the protocol also outlines the project overviews, my aims, the interview process, the establishing ethical considerations, data analysis, and follow-up. And those documents are also printed over there. But a big reason why my study was developed is to focus on the tribes in Kansas, is that the Indigenous Food System Study and Action Plan particularly focuses on Douglas County's Indigenous residents, while I wanted to expand my scope to capture the connections with our neighboring tribal communities, which eventually could strengthen how we support our residents and also tribal nations. And I would also like to acknowledge the valuable guidance and direction of Robert Hicks on the development of my study and his support throughout this project. And some of the objectives, these are my objectives that are listed, and they were designed to pinpoint exactly what I wanted to identify in these interviews and to help achieve my overall goals of this plan. And this included to identify Indigenous food systems and the many facets that entails, to explore tribal initiatives that support tribal members, to identify areas for potential collaboration with the Indigenous Food System Study and Action Plan and the Indigenous Food Systems Working Group, to understand areas of focus within these communities, and to also develop my own experience in tribal county government-to-government collaborations. For my study approach, I participated and made an effort to attend several community events prior to the interview process to approach this work in a respectful and a non-extractive way, which is the most important step when working with tribal communities, especially with research projects. And this was a key focus of mine while I worked to establish a meaningful and continual collaboration between Douglas County and tribal nations. And so with my initial outreach process that was mainly done by email or phone calls, I successfully connected with 3 of the 4 Kansas federally recognized tribes, including the Sac and Fox Nation of Missouri in Kansas and Nebraska, the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation, and the Iowa tribe of Kansas and Nebraska. However, for analysis of my data, only 2 of these interviews were recorded with the Iowa and the Prairie Band out of respect for the Sac and Fox's choice to not be recorded. There's still a meaningful interview that took place, and it's noted that the Sac and Fox are open to collaborations with the county in the future. These interviews also consisted of 7 questions that were designed to correlate with one of the objectives outlined earlier in my study and would be transcribed and coded using thematic analysis to interpret the data. And so here's a map of like the Kansas tribes. There the red marks on the map, but it just shows where they are in relation to Lawrence, and all these nations are within 95 miles of Douglas County. So they're in close proximity. Here are also some photos from my initial site visits. This one is with the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation. I initially got to visit with Melinda Williamson, the director of the food sovereignty program there in Prairie Band. And these are some of the images from their community gardens, their orchards, and one of the buffalo herds that we got to tour with the land department. And then here are some images too from when I was able to visit with the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska. I was fortunate enough to attend one of their community events and learn more about their prairie restoration efforts and see some of their community gardens as well. And yeah, it was a good event. Here are also the listed questions that I had for my interviews that also include what kinds of food sovereignty programs or services are available in your community? How do you let people in your community know about these programs or services? What progress has your community made in building or in improving its food system? How does your work support or help Indigenous people in your community? How would you be open to working with Douglas County to support Indigenous people and their food systems here? What challenges or difficulties do you face in supporting food needs in your Indigenous community? And how would you describe your community's Indigenous foodways or food system? And what parts of it are most important? So after conducting these interviews and learning more about each of these communities, these are some of the programs or initiatives that are currently taking place in each of the communities. So with the Prairie Band, that includes the development of their food sovereignty program, which is fairly new, and also the construction of a food sovereignty building. And some of the goals for that building include to be a mercantile and a meat processing facility, which would also be have a community accessible kitchen and be a learning space. They also have community gardens and individual gardening plot assistance for their tribal members. There's also, like I had shown in the previous images, the community orchard and buffalo herds. And a lot of these workshops are built around these programs and include harvesting, seed saving, and processing, and more. And with the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska, I learned more about the Iowa farms and the Iowa bee farms and how this initially started as industrial agriculture, but is also adapting to regenerative agricultural practices, and also includes greenhouses and produce production, traditional and medicinal plant gardens, local meat production, including beef and poultry, ecosystem restoration efforts that include with their prairie and woodlands. There's also a commodity food program, and a food is medicine program, which provides food boxes and community farmers markets. So these are my thematic analysis results, and overall these charts depict how many times these areas were reflected on in the interviews. These are all codes that were developed and correlate back to the objectives. These codes, all of them consist of local foodways, collaboration, land steward farmers, Indigenous foodways focus, tribal member support, challenges, and food entrepreneurs. So this thematic analysis was used to formulate my recommendations. Also, which was developed through this study, was I was able to identify the challenges and collaborations that for each nation. Some of the challenges that were identified for the Prairie Potawatomi Nation include securing funding to develop programs as desired, staffing for day-to-day operations and necessary labor, and also the integration of education into all aspects of food sovereignty programming to increase community investment. And for the Iowa challenge that was identified could be decreasing dependency on industrial agricultural practices, both systemically and logistically. And potential collaborations that were identified include knowledge of potential funding opportunities and support, tribal member entrepreneurial development resources, potential crossover with the farmers markets, and inclusion in the Indigenous Food System Study and Action Plan goals, specifically with the Indigenous food grocer and educational space, and support of tribal members who reside in Douglas County through things such as land access and resource education. For my policy recommendations, I would like to note that with the close expiration of the Douglas County Food System Plan, that these policy recommendations will influence the development of the Indigenous Food System Study and Action Plan, and should also be considered for the new iteration of the Douglas County Food System Plan. And after completing my research project, here are my recommendations for the council. And so for policy number 1 is collaborative food system building. We are committed to collaborative food system building with tribal nations as an expression of sovereignty, community well-being, and cultural continuity. This includes working in partnership with the Kickapoo Tribe in Kansas, the Sac and Fox Nation of Missouri in Kansas and Nebraska, the Prairie Potawatomi Nation, and the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska, as well as tribes with historical ties to Kansas. While there are similarities in policy goals and objectives in the Douglas County Food System Plan, they do not specify or focus on Indigenous food systems. And so building off of policy 1, there are these core Indigenous focus areas, with 1, food system building, collaborating on sustainable and culturally grounded food systems that strengthen local and regional food networks. 2, food access, advancing equitable and access to healthy, traditional, and local foods through shared infrastructure, distribution strategies, and resource sharing. And 3, food businesses, supporting the growth of tribally owned and tribally aligned food enterprises that foster economic sovereignty, local workforce development, and intertribal trade. These collaborative efforts will be guided by tribal leadership and advisory input, ensure that decision-making reflects community priorities, respects culture protocols, and uplifts Indigenous food sovereignty. For policy 2, it's tribal representation and decision-making processes. So to ensure that future initiatives reflect the voices and priorities of tribal nations, we commit to establishing meaningful tribal representation in decision-making processes. This includes the development of a tribal member advisory board composed of representatives from the Kickapoo Tribe in Kansas, the Sac and Fox Nation of Missouri in Kansas and Nebraska, the Prairie Potawatomi Nation, and the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska, as well as tribes with historical ties to Kansas. The Intertribal Relations Advisory Board will serve as a consultative and guiding body, ensuring that tribal perspectives are centered in planning, program development, implementation, and evaluation. This structure affirms our commitment to nation relationships, shared governance, and culturally grounded collaboration. This policy is guided by a commitment to reciprocal exchange and recognizing that tribal participation must result in tangible benefits for tribal nations. These benefits include access to funding, resources, co-created programs, capacity building opportunities, support for tribally driven initiatives, and the elevation of tribal knowledge and leadership. In turn, these reciprocal relationships strengthen collective impact, advance shared goals, and honor the sovereignty and self-determination of tribal nations. So for my concluding remarks, I just wanted to note we establish and prioritize a consistent foundation for collaboration with Kansas federally recognized tribes and acknowledge and engage with tribes who have historical connections to the region, including but not limited to the Kaw Nation or Kansas, the Osage Nation, the Shawnee peoples, and the Delaware peoples. These include commitments to county level food system planning, to seek formal connection and collaboration with federally recognized tribes in Kansas, to formalize and continue supporting the Indigenous Food Systems Working Group as a standing working group within the Food Policy Council, to ensure the continuation of Indigenous-led priorities and foodways initiatives, and the formation of an intertribal relations advisory board for Douglas County to support our uniquely diverse Indigenous communities. And yeah, if there's any questions.
It's fantastic. I really appreciate you like thinking forward about the food system, next iteration of the food system plan and the, like, assuredly something's going to be in this and you did the work to like even put those recommendations together. It's just, it's awesome.
That was really great. I have a question about the thematic analysis results. I can't read this on here and I couldn't read up there. What are we seeing in this chart?
Yeah, so in the chart, it's kind of referencing, I mentioned the codes earlier. I know you can't really read it, but some of those codes include local foodways, collaboration, land stewards and farmers, Indigenous foodways focus, tribal members support, challenges, and food entrepreneurs. So those codes were developed, they kind of reflect they directly reflect the objectives, and those codes were developed to kind of pinpoint how many times these items were referenced in each interview. And so there's numbers on there, if there was a better visual, but to how many times they were referenced in each interview, and then using that to interpret, what are things that are prioritized in these communities or of major focus, and that's kind of what the chart depicts.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And you can really tell that like the recommendations you made, like those themes kind of took precedence in those recommendations.
Yeah, and to also note, Brett Ramey is who I interviewed for the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska. He's their climate resilience planner and implementer. So yeah, he's one of the tribe, my main contact for the Iowa tribe. And Melinda Williamson, she's on the call as well. She was my main contact for the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation. If those people are people you guys would want to connect with.
I want to make sure folks out on the internet, do you have any questions for Star? Or thoughts about the research?
Good job, Star.
Yeah. I like learning about your whole protocol as well, and that you have this available to like hand off to somebody else doing the next thing.
Okay.
I think it goes right in with what we're working on with the Indigenous food pathway studies and some of the stuff that we're looking at. So I mean, it's good. I think a lot of stuff that you're talking about and that you've suggested policy wise, I think it's going to fold right into what we're working on anyway. So I think definitely it's going to get used.
Nice. Thank you.
I don't notice if you noticed in the chat, Connie, Fonta said that kids gave a standing ovation. Is there any questions in the chat? Just so I make sure we're. When I noticed you.
I was just struggling to unmute for a minute, but I wanted to give Star the flowers right ago. It was really, really well done. Super interesting, great to hear the update since the last time. Huge problem.
Sounds like to hear.
Yeah, Quinn, your mic is kind of underwater sounding.
Sorry about that. I'm having the darndest time with the mute button. Was just giving Star props. Way to go.
Thank you.
Like Melinda says, great little star. And like it says, we, the school district, want to definitely find ways to procure from tribal nations consistently and over the long term. Okay.
Just say as one of the people that you interviewed, I also really appreciated the way that you reached out to me and other tribal members, and it was reflected in what you shared that it was really as much about how you go about it as the end result. And so in that process of coming out and spending time with the community before even asking to talk with anybody, it is really important and noticed. And I know you know that, and that's how we do things, but I think that's like one of the main takeaways for the county is to just see not just the end results and the recommendations, which I'll mention briefly in a sec, but just like the ways that we go about doing the work, like the how and the where often is as important, if not more so, than like the end result or that what actually shows up. So just appreciating that. As one of the people you reached out to, and it's just fun to have you there and hang out. And then as far as the recommendations too, like very clear, very direct, I think very attainable. And so maybe just as a thinking, speaking as more of a community member, resident of Douglas County, but also work for my tribe north of here. And you knowing that you put this out there for them, and there's a lot of backing and a lot of other folks that I think would appreciate seeing that. When you think of how I or other community members could like back you and back these recommendations and try to keep that conversation moving with the county and others, knowing that you're kind of moving on out of your official role after this. Other ways, how can we help?
I think the best way so far would be to like, I guess show collaboration, not, although this focuses like on the Kansas federally recognized tribes, there is that project of the Indigenous Food System Study and Action Plan. And so that's going to be, which focuses on Douglas County's Indigenous residents, like involvement in that is really going to be crucial in, developing this image of what's needed and to support Douglas County's Indigenous residents. So I think that's the next step for residents that are here that want to support this plan.
How are we sharing this with like our county leaders and?
So this recorded section is going to be sent to the Board of County Commissioners actually to get them prepared for our presentation on the November 12th.
So are you going to be presenting at that meeting on this in particular?
Yeah,
Yes, a short version.
Okay.
a really short version.
Yes.
Well, and if it's too, if it's like getting feedback and from the commissioners and stuff, I want to be able to like, I know all of them. I would love to be able to like meet with them and make sure that they are supporting this work and continuing to have those conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think if needed, I can arrange continuation of leadership meetings. And yeah, I mean, we'll still have started the project, which she'll be working with the Indigenous Food Systems Working Group as well.
Mhm.
I just want to say I'm so proud of the work of Star and genuinely honored to have worked next to her. Just her commitment to, people and access to culture is just very, and I'm excited for what's coming next and excited that my interpretation is that the council is very supportive of this work. And would be interested to see how, this moves forward with time. And of course, it's going to influence the Indigenous Food System Study and Action Plan. But yeah, thank you so much, Star, for this wonderful, thorough, and genuinely just people's work.
I would share with like the members too. It's like have conversations about this with your social networks, and the more we can spread this out, outward into the community, the better. You know, I want to take my role as chair and whoever takes this role next, Quinn, to be able to kind of steward the conversations as well.
Mhm.
I heard that there's a lot of people here that are gonna make sure this stays front and center too, right? If I hit that. All right. You heard it here.
Yeah.
It's been exciting seeing how this is all like growing momentum.
Thank you, Stella.
Yes.
And thank you, Brett
Sorry.
and Melinda.
Oh,
Well, Linda, maybe?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, sorry, I'm driving and I tried to put my hand up on the chat, but I, just so I don't have to, you guys don't have to hear the background, but anyhow, I just wanted to say, Star, that was really a great presentation, and I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to come into our community and learn more about the things that we're doing and bringing that back to the Douglas County community. I really look forward to working with you guys and seeing your work Star kind of progress with these policy changes, and anything that I can do to help, just let me know. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks so much, Melinda. And just to echo that, I know that it is a really exciting opportunity for the council to be able to support this work that you're doing, Star, and the work that has been happening among leaders in our community as well. It's such a chance for just having attended now the first couple meetings of the Indigenous Food Systems Working Group since you've been ready to sort of share the work that's been happening in that space. It just feels like an honor for the Douglas County Food Policy Council to be able to engage in food sovereignty work. And I wanted to shout out something that Ponta also shared in the chat, which is, oh gosh, and now I can't get the chat back open. Here we go. He says that we, the school district, want to definitely find ways to procure from tribal nations consistently and over the long term. So any role that the Food Policy Council can play as well in just kind of helping with that value chain coordination and getting the, I guess I'm speaking for the council, but also, of course, that's what I do in my day job at K-State Extension. So it's wonderful and exciting to see the work happening in our community, and that the Food Policy Council is always a very eager arena. Like, we're very keen to hear about your work and support however we can. So thanks so much.
Thank you. And then this is also my contact information if anyone wants to get a hold of me for anything. Yeah, thank you for having me as the Douglas County Food Systems intern.
Is your Douglas one gonna be Bob soon then?
Yeah, so the bottom one better to contact me.